Good day, everyone. We are the Group 4, and today we will be discussing about the early modern art, which comprises of realism, impressionism, and post-impressionism. These are the table of contents of our presentation. So first is Introduction to Early Modern Art. So what is early modern art? It refers to artistic movements that emerged in the 19th century and transformed traditional art styles. Artists began rejecting strict academic rules and explored new ways of seeing the world. Focus shifted from mythology and religion to daily life, nature, emotion, and personal expression. These changes prepared the way for later modern movements such as Cubism and Expressionism. Now let's move to the history of early modern art. Early modern art developed during a time of major change in Europe, influenced by industrialization and political revolutions, and emerged in France. Realism, from 1840s to 1880s, focused on showing everyday life as it truly was, especially the experiences of ordinary people without idealization, and was solidified after the 1948 revolution as a rejection against Romanticism. This was followed by Impressionism, 1865 to 1885, which shifted attention to capturing light, color, and fleeting moments using loose brush strokes and outdoor painting, with the first independent exhibition in 1874. After this, Post-Impressionism from 1886 to 1905 went further by emphasizing emotion, structure, and symbolic meaning, with the final exhibition in 1886. Together, these movements showed the transition from realistic depiction to more personal and expressive form of art, shaping the foundation of modern art. Next is the social and cultural changes in the 19th century. First, the Industrial Revolution transformed cities, transportation, and daily life. Factories were built, machines replaced many forms of manual labor, and railways made travel faster and easier. These changes changed the way people lived and worked. Artists began to notice the effects of industrialization, such as crowded cities, new industries, and the contrast between wealth and poverty. Second, urbanization created new experiences and subjects for artists. As more people moved from rural areas to cities, urban centers became lively spaces filled with streets, cafes, parks, theaters, and train stations. These modern city scenes provided fresh inspiration for artists who wanted to capture contemporary life instead of historical or religious subjects. Third, the growing middle class became new patrons and buyers of art. Before this period, wealthy aristocrats and the church were the main supporters of artists. During the 19th century, the expanding middle class had more money to spend on culture and decoration. This created a wider market for art and gave artists more independence from traditional patrons. Fourth is the political change and social issues influenced artistic themes. The 19th century was marked by revolutions, reforms, and struggles for workers' rights. Many artists became interested in showing the realities of ordinary people, including laborers, farmers, and the poor. Art became a way to reflect social conditions and raise awareness of injustice. Fifth, scientific studies of light and color affected artistic techniques. Scientists were learning more about optics and how the human eye perceives color. Artists applied these discoveries by experimenting with shadows, reflections, and complementary colors. This was especially important for the Impressionists, who focused on capturing changing light and atmosphere. Finally, the invention of photography challenged traditional painting. Since cameras could record realistic images more accurately and quickly, painters no longer needed to focus only on exact representation. Instead, many artists explored creativity, emotion, movement, and personal expression. This helped lead to the new styles of early modern art.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I am Hassanar Sarusung Langlang, and now we are going to talk about the origin and characteristic of realism. So first, what is realism? Realism art is also known as the realistic art or realistic style. Realism in art is the accurate, detailed, and unembellished depiction of nature or contemporary life, rejecting imaginative idealization. In art, realism is generally the attempt to represent subject matter truthfully, without artificiality, exaggeration, or speculative or supernatural elements. From the word itself, real, meaning realistic yung art. Later, we are going to talk about the characteristic of realism so that you can understand it more. But first, we are going to talk about the origin of realism. Origin of Realism. Realism was an artistic movement that began in France in the 1850s, after the 1848 Revolution. It arose as a direct reaction against the emotionalism of Romanticism, aiming instead to depict everyday life, ordinary people, and contemporary social realities with objective truth, often highlighting the struggles of the working class. The main difference between Romanticism and Realism is that Romanticism explores the sublime, supernatural, medieval, and emotional experience and prioritizes subjective emotion and imagination, while Realism focuses on contemporary life, social issues, objective reality, objective observation, and detailed accuracy. Just by looking at the pictures given, you can clearly see the difference between a Romanticism art and a Realism art. The movement was spurred by the Industrial and Commercial Revolution, the rise of democratic ideals, and the social upheaval of 1848. The popularity of such realistic works grew with the introduction of photography. Painter Gustave Courbet is considered the leader of the movement, challenging the art establishment by focusing on mundane, greedy, or non-idealized subject. Now, we are going to discuss the four characteristics of realism. First is the rejection of artificiality. Realists reacted against movements like Romanticism and Neoclassicism, which often idealize or dramatize subjects. Realism aimed to show life as it actually is. Second is the focus on the ordinary. Realist artists emphasize everyday people, workers, peasants, and the middle class, rather than nobility or mythological figures. Third is the truthful depiction. Realist artists aim for a truthful and accurate representation of nature and contemporary life rather than imitating past artistic achievement. Note that realism isn't about accuracy. In a visual sense, it's also about honesty in subject matter and perspective. The philosophical stance is just as important as technical detail. And lastly, the social commentary. Some realist artists use their work to critique social and political issues like social inequality, injustice, poverty, labor conditions, and class struggles, addressing the harsh realities of the time.
Assalamualaikum. I am Halila Goling Abdul Jabbar, and now let's talk about the key artists, works, and major artists of realism. Okay, first let's start with Gustave Courbet. He was born in 1819 and died in 1877. He is known as the leader of the realism movement. Courbet believed that art should only show what is real. Sabi niya nga, show me an angel and I will paint one. Meaning hindi siya nagpipinta ng bagay na hindi niya nakikita sa totoong buhay. One of his most famous works is The Stone Breakers. In this painting, he showed ordinary workers breaking stones. What makes this special is that he painted them in a very large size, which was usually only used for kings or important people. So instead of glorifying the rich, he focused on the poor, parang pinipilit niyang ipakita sa upper class na mahalaga rin ang buhay ng mga ordinaryong tao. This is still this is one of the main ideas of realism, showing the truth even if it's uncomfortable. Next, we have Jean Francois Millet. He was born in 1814 and died in 1875. Millet focused on rural life, especially farmers and peasants. Instead of showing them as weak or pitiful, he painted them with dignity and respect. Parang pinapakita niya na may halaga at dangal ang kanilang paghihirap. His famous painting is The Gleaners. It shows three women picking leftover grains from a field. This may look simple, but it actually represents poverty and survival. Makikita natin dito kung gaano kahirap ang buhay ng mga nasa lowest class, but at the same time, Millet shows their strength and perseverance. So again, realism is about showing real life, not perfect but meaningful. Now, let's move on to Honoré Dormey. He was born in 1808 and died in 1879. Dormey was known for his art to criticize society, especially the government. He wanted people to see the inequality between the rich and the poor. One of his work is the third class carriage. This painting shows people inside a crowded train. Makikita mo na pagod sila, tahimik at siksikan. This reflects the everyday life of the working class. Unlike the rich who travel comfortably, these people experience hardship daily. Dorme shows that a reality without exaggeration. He focuses on emotion and truth, not beauty. Finally, let's talk about the impact of realism. First, realism democratized art. This means that art has no longer just about kings, gods, or wealthy people. It started to focus on ordinary individuals. Parang sinasabi na lahat ng tao ay mahalaga, hindi lang ang mayayaman. Second, it raised social awareness. Realism worked like visual journalism. It showed the real condition of society: poverty, hard labor, and inequality. Dahil dito, mas naging aware ang mga tao sa mga problema ng lipunan. And lastly, it challenged traditional art. Before, art was expected to be beautiful and perfect, but realism proved that truth is more important than beauty. Kahit hindi maganda o kaaya-aya, basta totoo, mahalaga iyon. And because of this, realism opened the way for modern art. And that would be all. Thank you very much.
Now, let's talk about the origin and characteristics of Impressionism. Impressionism is a style of painting that developed in France during the mid to late 19th century. It began as a group of Paris based artists started exhibiting their own work in the 1860s. So they started exhibiting their work as their most of their works were often rejected by traditional art institutions. So the name of the movement actually came from a painting called Impression Sunrise by Claude Monet. At that time, artists felt that photography was taking over the role of realistic painting. So, because of this, they decided to create a new style that focused less on accuracy and more on capturing a moment or feeling. The term Impressionism actually started as criticism. A French art critic named Louis Leroy saw the painting Impression Sunrise and mocked it in his review. He mocked the painting, calling it just an impression and saying it looked unfinished. However, instead of rejecting the criticism, the artists embraced the term. They realized that impression perfectly described what they were trying to do, which is to capture a quick moment or feeling. So, this is how Impressionism was born. So, what is Impressionism? Impressionism is known for painting outdoors. So, there is a known French phrase, which is en plein air, meaning na in the open air. Artists painted directly from nature to capture the scene as it happened. So, ang Impressionism kasi is a painting that which was painted outside and happened on the spot. Kumbaga, yung mga artists witnessed their subject firsthand. Their goal was not to recreate the subject exactly, but to show how the eye experiences it in a moment. Now, there are several key characteristics of Impressionism. So these characteristics show how artists changed the way painting was done. So first, we have the visible and quick brush strokes instead of smooth blending. So this made their paintings look more lively and dynamic. Second, they used light colors, often placing them side by side so the viewer's eye blends them naturally. Another is the focus on light. They showed how light changes throughout the day, such as reflections on water or shifting shadows. And their use of ordinary subjects like human people, landscapes, city life, and everyday life of people instead of historical or royal themes. In addition, they used unusual angles, where subject is not always centered and may look like a quick snapshot taken from an unexpected viewpoint. And lastly is the open composition, wherein parts of a scene extend beyond the edges of the frame, making it feel like the image continues outside and creating a more natural, dynamic, and spontaneous effect. So, in conclusion, Impressionism is about capturing a quick impression of a moment. It is focusing on light, color, and feeling rather than perfect detail.
Hi, I am Sharifa Feb Salma P. Sharif Kama, and I am the reporter for the key artists and works of Impressionism. So first we have Claude Monet. He was born on 1840 and died on in 1926. He is often called the father of Impressionism, as he was obsessed with how light transformed a subject over time. He famously painted the same scenes, such as the haystacks or the ruined cathedral, in a series to document the shifting of atmospheric conditions. Next, we have Pierre-Auguste Renoir. He was born on 1841 and died on 1919. Known for his focus on people and the warmth of human interaction, he excelled at depicting Parisian leisure and joyful social scenes. His work often featured luminous portraits and vibrant sensual figures. Now we have Edgar Degas, was born on 1834 and died on 1917. He is a master of movement. He preferred urban subjects like ballet, dancers, horse races, and laundry workers. So unlike many peers, he frequently combined Impressionism light with precise drawing and photography-inspired compositions. So his subjects are mostly workers, laundry workers, and those in the social class, outside the social class, and very urban subjects. Then we have Camille Pissarro, born on 1830 and died on 1903. This is the only artist to exhibit in all 8 Impressionist exhibitions. He served as a mentor to the group and focused on both rural landscapes and modern urban street scenes. Then next, and last but not the least, we have Berthe Morisot. She was born on 1841 and died on 1895. She is a central figure who focused on the private domestic lives of women and the maternal bond, often using highly expressive loose brushwork. So her subjects, as what we can see in the pictures here, are women and those of their lives. Now we have the famous works and innovations that was highlighted in the Impressionism era. So first we have Impression Sunrise by Claude Monet during 1872. The painting that inadvertently gave the movement its name. So it's very a literal depiction of Impressionism by just looking at the style and the name also. Then next we have Dance at the Le Moulin de la Galette by Renoir on 1876. This is a vibrant depiction of a Sunday afternoon in Paris, as what Renoir always subjects is the Paris life. And next we have the Water Lily series by again Monet, a monumental project in his later years that published towards abstraction. So the picture here or the artwork here presented in the PPT is only one of the series of the Water Lily series, wherein there are a lot of water lilies that was painted by Monet in the Impressionism style. Let's proceed to the technical innovations. First, we have on plein air or open air, abandoning the studio to paint directly outdoors to capture natural light. Then we have short, broken brushstrokes using visible flecks of colors to build form, allowing colors to blend in the viewer's eyes rather than on the palette. Then next, we have vibrant palettes, utilizing newly invented synthetic pigments like cerulean blue and cobalt violet, and avoiding black or gray for shadows, opting instead for complementary colors. Then next, and finally, we have unconventional composition, adapting snapshot perspectives influenced by photography and Japanese ukiyo-e prints, which often featured radical cropping and asymmetrical arrangements. Of course, we couldn't, during those times, criticism and public reactions couldn't be avoided. So the first public reaction or criticism is the initial hostility. This is the movement that was met with widespread derision and ridicule. So parang pinagtatawanan nila yung mga ginawa. And then critics at the official Paris Salon, the dominant art establishment, rejected their works for being unfinished and mere sketches. So next, we have the satirical origins. The term Impressionism was originally a derogatory slur, coined by the critic Louis Leroy in Le Charivari, mocking Monet's styles as a preliminary drawing for a wallpaper. And next, we have eventual acceptance. Despite being dismissed as lunatics early on, the group gained popularity through the independent exhibitions in 1874 and 1866. Supporters like writer Émile Zola and art dealer Paul Durand-Ruel helped the movement gain international recognition, eventually establishing it as the foundation of modern art.
Hello everyone, I'm Abul Karma Madali and today I'm going to talk about Post-Impressionism. This was a very famous art movement that happened between 1886 and 1910. It changed how we look at art today, and let's begin. So the origins, where did it start? It actually started in France. Before this, there was Impressionism, which focused on how light looks. But post-impressionist artists wanted more. They wanted to show deeper feelings and more solid shapes. They didn't just want to paint what they saw. They wanted to paint what they felt. So the core characteristics. So there are three main things to look for in these art styles. We have symbolic colors, geometric forms, and subjectivity. So the symbolic color, they used color to show mood. For example, blue for sadness or yellow for energy, even if the real object wasn't that colors. So the number two is geometric form. They look for shape like circles, cones, and square in natures. So number three is subjectivity. So the paintings show the artist's personal feeling, not just clear pictures of a place. So, we have here chronological evolution, or here is a quick look at the history. In 1886, the last Impressionist show happened by 1888, which is the Van Gogh was painting his famous work in Arles. In 1891, Gauguin moved to Tahiti for new inspirations. Finally, in 1910, an art critic gave this style the name Post-Impressionism. So now, let's meet the famous artists. There are four main leaders who changed the art world forever. Each one had a very different and unique style. So we have here Vincent van Gogh, or let's say emotions. So first is Vincent van Gogh. He is famous for his Starry Night. You can see his thick paint and swirling lines. He used art as express his strong emotions. To him, the color in the stars were a way to show his spiritual feelings. So we have here Paul Cézanne, or structures. Next is a Paul Cézanne. People call him the father of modern art. He didn't care about making things look soft. He wanted things to look solid. He used small patches of color to build shapes like this mountain. He believed everything in nature could be simplified into geometric shapes. So we have here diversity of artistic visions. So other artists had different ideas too. Sarot used tiny dots of color. This is called pointillism. So Gauguin used flat colors and bold lines to talk about spirit and fates. So Lautrec painted the nightlife and theaters of Paris. He liked to show the real peoples of the city. So we have your Impressionism versus Post-Impressionism. So what is the difference? Impressionism is like a snapshot of light. It happened fast, while Post-Impressionism is slower and more planned. While Impressionism looks at the outside world, Post-Impressionism looks at the inside world of the artist. So we have here prevalence of schools. These charts show how the movement was divided. Some artists focus on structures, some on symbol, and some on pure emotion. All these different paths help create the many style of art we see today. So let's talk about societal impact. Why does this matter to society? Post-Impressionism gave artists the freedom to be themselves. It told that world that art doesn't have to look like a photograph. This led to other famous styles like Cubism and Expressionism. It made art more personal and brave. That's the end of my presentations. So Post-Impressionism remind us that art is about how we see and feel the world. Thank you for listening, and does anyone have any question, just comment below.